Mike from around the world.
Pastor Paul.
All right, Mike. Hey, Mike. Okay, you were on with us last Thursday, of course. We talked about the solar explosion on the sun. It was the largest one in 6 years. You and I both said, look out. We'll probably see an earthquake, maybe a volcano. Well, we saw both. We saw both. You know, the here goes Iceland, unbelievable. And then China, we have a killer quake there, 137 dead, 982 hurt, and probably more still buried in the rubble. So, and you gave us several dates to watch for. So, tell us what's happening here. I mean, it was spot on this. You were spot on.
Well, Pastor Paul, first of all, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, first of all, because, you know, collecting raw data, essentially, here's what happens. You collect raw data, signals from systems. It's not going through a filter or anything, right? So you have to do variance, amplitude, phase shifting and keying and all these different things. You create data sets. The data set from the last one was about 3 terabytes of data. Can you imagine a database that's 3 terabytes of data? Anyway, so I parse that, right? So I have the hardware, right? I do that myself. I parse that data and pull out different, let's just say different points that I've learned over the years, which gives us, it'll give you a good idea as to the energy factors that are coming in. And of course, the sun's data is related to that, and all this, that, and the other, and it takes a lot of time. But what's happening is, through that, you get the identification of radiation signatures coming into our solar system. So it's not easy. Nobody else is going to really, spend their time and do that, to give it to people. And so I do that quite a bit. But we have these large energy pulses coming in. They're coming in from one direction, too. That's what's so astounding, right? Every time you do a sweep, you get these pulses coming in from one direction, not 2 or 3, just one direction. So just so everybody understands, it's not quite an exact science, but it is some type forecast for, the Christian community.
Right.
But Pastor Paul, it's been pretty accurate so far. So the algorithm itself that exists, of course, I have to do that manually most often. But it's becoming more and more precise because the energy pulses are so much more defined, right? Less noise, a lot more key factors involved. And we have a lot more coming in.
Is that because it's closer? I mean, obviously, it's because it's getting closer, I guess.
Yeah, and when you have guys, some of the folks that, because I'll consult on occasion, next year, these guys are going to lock down the books. Now, what does that mean? That means look for a lot of scrubbing of data on the internet. It's going to be like, no real data on the internet, no hiccups or anything, right? They're running all these optics to these websites through an AI type filter system. So it's going to be nobody's going to catch anything, which is unfortunate, because how in the world the people going to know anything if everybody wants to keep it a secret? And of course, everybody knows America's pretty good at that, keeping everything under lock and key. The bad part is we have the formation of more than just heavenly events, but we have events, period, that are just indicating, something is just no good. It's just no good. And of course, seeing all the information that I do, you can't help but to put together a picture that preparations are in place. Sometimes, budgets will go right past my face from time to time, and you see where the focal point of money is going. And it paints a pretty solid picture that the earth is changing on a permanent basis. And that, there are many people making preparations, but the people, they don't know.
Right.
How can the people know?
They don't know. So the preparations, I take it, I'm just going to guess, is the underground cities and underground compartments of preservation for the human race. And
Well, that's ongoing. Pascal, that's been going on for a long time. But when you have the majority of profits or black budget material no longer going to certain individuals like Lockheed and Skunk Works and other folks that are involved, but they're redirected funds, and you have arguments over who's going to get the rest of the funds. There's a problem because you're looking at our food system has altered, different, changed, not the same anymore, right? Which is going to make it pretty rough for those who manufacture, food outside of these major corporations. You have the fuel system, right? That's going to be changing. Of course, our financial system is being digitized, and everybody's getting ready for all that to be digitized, which will allow 100% compliance and control over where finances are, who has what, right? So on and so forth. The preparations are expansive, really expansive. And other countries, right? For example, other countries they're quite angry because the USA often will hold back things from everybody, right?
Right.
And leave them out of the loop. Well, they don't like that. China knows something is going to happen. Russia knows things are progressing, right? Everybody knows this. And so what do you see right now? You see every single country breaking away from how it used to work to be more independent and develop things.
Yep.
And now they're fighting over whatever resources they can get, land grabs, you name it. And this is so they can continue to because they want to save their own skins.
Right.
Right. If that hypothetical, if we are very close to a catastrophic type situation where we have a massive change, they're going to try and protect themselves and save themselves. And you'll be able to see what they're doing by some of the wars that are happening right now are ridiculous, foolish, right? They're very foolish until you start look at who's investing in these wars, right? That will show you something, because who would drop $900 million on a war for what, right? So there's certainly a plan. And when we get those telltale signs where people can actually see them, when earthquakes start to trickle up, volcanism continues, the dryness comes with massive flooding, right?
Yep.
Then hopefully people will get the picture that we're not going back to normal, but we're undergoing some cyclical change that we have forgotten about or that's never been recorded.
So, you bring up some great points here that we're not going back to normal. This is the new normal. And let's talk a little bit about a couple things. Let's talk about Iceland for a minute. You talk about volcanism. This was quite an eruption. It's different because it's this big rip, almost 3 miles. It's about almost 3 kilometers long. But they say it's going to be spewing this hot lava for months. Is the city of Grenoble still in danger? Or how big is this thing underneath?
Yeah, I'd say it is. Well, you have stacks. You have, think of it, how Yellowstone has that big, open chamber in the bottom, right?
Yep.
Well, think of 15 to 20 chambers like that below Iceland. That's what you're looking at.
No. Seriously?
Yeah, that's what you're looking at. So it's almost like some sort of a termite mound, right? Has a bunch of chambers in there, right? But be honest with you, the rate of flow that's coming out of Iceland is not enough to relieve the pressure that's building up, because all these solar winds, they're being captured by the magnetosphere, right? Pumped into the earth. The radiation is redirected by magnetic field lines. It's being redirected back into the earth, right? Which is overcharging the earth from the inside out. So we don't have good relief points. So if we don't have additional eruptions soon, we're going to have larger and larger earthquakes. In fact, with volcanic eruptions, volcanism is simply somebody shook up the champagne bottle and the cap blew off, right?
Right.
In this case, it's been shaken up quite a bit, and the earth is overcharged, right? It's emitting more gamma rays than normal. It's messed up a few neutrino detectors, which are isolated because they're deep inside the earth. But when the earth begins to emit too much gamma radiation, it messes up their sensor capabilities, right? That's what's happening. So the earth is absorbing a lot of energy, and there's hardly any output, right? We just don't have enough relief points. And that means big earthquakes are coming, or smaller earthquakes and higher intervals and more of them.
So, okay, when you talk about these earthquakes we had, of course, China had a deadly one. And there's, of course, I got to bring this up. There was an earthquake today in Alaska, 6.1 in Anak, Alaska. But
yeah,
now if I'm right, and I could be wrong, obviously I could be wrong, that we talked about this last week that there was a base, abandoned military base that apparently info I got was from inside the government that this base was tried to be overrun or secretly taken because they thought it was abandoned by the Chinese. But the Americans were hiding there, and they stopped them. I heard that it was actually in Anak, Alaska. Now we have a quake in Anak, Alaska. Is that just weird? Am I just, is it just a coincidence? Or?
Well, you know what? Alaska itself is weird. It is. It is. I know a lot of, well, not a lot, but a few folks who have retired out of the intelligence community. That's one of the first places they wanted to go.
Really?
The reason being is because of what's underground. There's a lot of mystique under the ground in Alaska, right? And it's to be, you know, I wouldn't want to. I'm not going there.
Well, I mean,
I'm not going there.
You brought up about this door, some door in Alaska a couple years ago.
There's too much in Alaska, and of course it's not, you know, it's not public. It's still in the area of mystique and classified intelligence reports.
Okay.
But Alaska is a place that it has many mysteries, but those mysteries bite, and some people have ran into trouble there. You know, I just wouldn't go there. There's a lot of activity underneath the earth in Alaska, so I'm not surprised if recent events would cause some type of response or earthquakes hit there in certain areas. That then, because it will turn into something, right? All you have to do is track those earthquakes, and then all of a sudden you'll find out there are going to be, you know, some military movements in that area, right? The people get harassed by military movements. It happens all the time. But let's go ahead and face it. We have an element on this earth that a lot of people don't want to discuss, and they've been here since the beginning. And you know, at some point, they're going to cause their interferences.
Okay, now you're moving to another level here. In other words, we've talked about this, that some entities that have been here a long time that are now under the ground, and they've come in and out, they're surfacing. I mean, is this, I mean, look, the book I got coming out, Revelation 9/11, is about Apollyon coming out of the bottomless pit with a band of demons or entities. I mean, obviously something's going to happen. John knew about it 2,000 years ago. You're saying that we're aware of it now. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. They've been aware of that for a long time. And they don't call them aliens.
No.
That's not what they call them.
Okay.
That's more of a populist type thing, but that's not what they call them.
What do they call them?
Others.
Others, okay.
Others, yeah. And they also call them liars, right? Because they never tell things. They never tell the truth. They don't. They will always, it seems, they always misdirect, right? But it is very ancient, spiritual. It's the fallen angels are what they are. You know, some of the ones that weren't locked up, because only 200 got locked up on Mount Hermon.
I know, that's true. Yep.
Are out there. They're cast into the earth. They're doing things all over the place, but that will no longer be a mystery, you know, soon enough. But, yeah, they deal with that a lot in Alaska. Alaska's a place swarming with activity just like that. Swarming.
All right. Now, we've heard about a guy named Phil Schneider that back in, I don't know, maybe in the 90s, maybe, who tried to bring some of this forward. Now, I don't know if you know, is there anything you could share on that, or is that classified?
Well, I think it's the guy, I think it's a guy who said he went underground, right, with Delta Operator Escort.
Yes.
And they got into a small firefight, right? Well, there are, for the Air Force, they do have escorts, you know, because you never know what you're going to face, what situation you're going to get into. And, well, just like overseas, people have ran into things, right?
Yep.
But that's That's a special operations community issue right there. And they, if they run into things like that, Pascal, it's unfortunate, number one, that people don't know that. But if you look back at the history of America, right, why is it that we have every known civilization, right? All the architecture is here. Why? Especially in the Grand Canyons. Why do we have that? Egyptian things, right?
That's crazy.
The large 22-foot long, that's where they found the axes. Axes that weigh about 2 tons, knives that are, 7-foot long knives.
What?
With hand-worn shafts in them, right? Iron that does not rust, things of that nature.
In the Grand Canyon? In the Grand Canyon?
Yeah, all that. You know what? The America, before anybody ever got here, right? The Native Americans, they had a pact with something here. And when the settlers actually got here, they had to tussle with some things here. It was a very spiritually challenging place.
Unbelievable.
It was right here.
But I got to deal with this because King Tut, if we run over to Egypt for a minute and we find, they find his grave finally, inside, he has a dagger in there that's made of exotic metal that they couldn't have, we weren't even in the Bronze Age then.
Right.
It's got like precious stones in it. It's gold. It's incredible. Okay. So there's some stuff that's unexplained that are certainly happening that we have not been made privy of. We just now finding stuff out. We ask questions, but I know that there's stuff been going on, ancient things that are happening that are still happening. Those ancients don't go away, and so we're dealing with them. Let me ask you a question, Mike, because Mike, today I watched the movie Leave the World Behind that Barack and Michelle Obama put out. They have a company called Higher Ground Productions. The movie is apocalyptic, no doubt about it. There was a scene in there I forgot to tell you about, and that was they show the sun, they show the earth from the moon, and they showed some bright light coming toward the earth, and then the earth becomes a eclipse of the moon. So the moon, from the surface of the moon, you see the earth in a ring of fire in the middle of the sun. Why? Why?
That's why? Obvious, right?
Yeah,
That's obvious, right?
Yeah. So, and I don't have nothing to do with the movie, but they give you that as if to say this is coming. So the chaos you're watching on Earth is it's happening because of what's coming in the heavens. You're left with that impression. I don't know if most of the populace will see that, but it was right there in your face. So you're like, okay, so we're on the twilight, or we're in the end of this journey here. The planet Earth is about to go through an apocalyptic scenario.
Pascal, that's why I attempt to do what I do, right? Taking raw information, right, and utilizing computers to extract usable data from it.
Yeah,
like solar flares, right? Like heavily issues and problems, not prophecy. This is data analytics. Right. That's what that is.
So
it's very difficult.
You have access to data, and you're able to, and you know what you're doing with it, and you're able to abstract it and put it together and create and understand it. And it's being done. Tell me that's also being done within the governments of the world, but that's kept under a wrap.
Oh, they do it, Pascal. They have their techniques of doing things so efficiently, right? They're never going to, in my opinion, they're not going to be afraid of anything but Christ. Nothing else is going to scare them, right? In my case, though, right, you can't use any of that equipment for personal use.
I know.
But I have the know-how, right? So I developed my own hardware and my own programs and a small little OS to essentially take, if I could, like a radio broadcast, right? FM. I take that FM signal. I pull everything out of the air. I analyze it, digitize it. That takes a whole lot. That took 3 years for me to perfect, to get that out of it. Then I go through the data to take out different symbols or points. And they're 4 bits per symbol. You take that out. It creates a data set of terabytes. You go through there and then you extract, right? What is what? Then you classify, and you'll start to see, X-rays and ultraviolet and gamma and cold, heat, all these different data points, and that becomes usable data because I essentially paint a picture from raw data that's all going all over the place. Now, in some cases, it comes by direct observation, and what I mean by that is when I'm doing what I do, sometimes you'll see things they're not classified.
Right.
It's just that nobody's ever going to talk about it.
Because
right?
nobody else can see it. Right.
Yeah, they're just not going to talk about that stuff. And so I will see it. And it kind of, gives me a nudge to start looking in a specific direction so Christians have this knowledge. Because I'll tell you something, Pascal. People, for example, sometimes it's a hit and miss thing. It is because it's all data analytics. Right. But one day, Pastor Paul, a warning will come out. People are not going to listen, right? They're not, because a lot of people cry wolf, and I'm trying not to cry wolf,
right.
But people are not going to listen, and it's going to cost millions of lives. It will cost millions of lives because people are not going to pay attention.
So shows like we're doing here, you and I talking, is a way to kind of allow some of this information to be out there so where people can pick up on it. Okay. So, being careful about it, but at the same time, that's what we do. That's what we've been doing for almost 10 years now, is to give people that pay attention, watch here, keep an eye on this, learn.
Right.
Yeah. And you do a great job at walking all around it and protecting classified information and yet giving people an opportunity to know there's something really real going on. And we have to keep our eyes on it. It's tied to the Bible. It's not, it's tied to the Bible. And it's to help us come to the knowledge of Christ. But it's also to warn us, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, because if a person is surprised by something that happens, right, fear can actually debilitate a person, right?
Right.
Fear can cause a person to turn against their whole family. And we're talking about good people.
Yep.
So if a person is overtaken by fear, it's because they had no idea. They were living in specific conditions. However, if a person has knowledge of it, right, they may get irritated and aggravated. Well, I've heard this before, this, that, and the other, but at least they know. They know now, right, where they didn't know before. Kind of like the weather. I talked about the weather a lot. Every time I would bring up a conversation, the weather was a part of it. Now look what we're facing, right? Look at last year, the hottest year on record. The ocean was the hottest it's ever been. It's going to be worse this year. We're supposed to be at this solar cycle that's here, right? We're supposed to have minimal activity. The sun is supposed to be, diminishing in all its effects, and the opposite is happening.
It's opposite.
And so, things like that, when they begin to happen, people say, well, what's causing it? What's causing it? And you're not going to look around and you'll find speculation. You'll find, everybody's theory. But what about somebody who can actually snag some data that's not going to get in the way or step on the toes of government and what they have to do, right? Because nobody ever wants to tell a governmental secret, because that puts the country at risk.
No, you can't do that.
That'd be highly irresponsible.
That's irresponsible.
That would be bad, right? That's treason.
That's right. That is.
In my book, that would be treason. But if you can collate, after you multiplex radio signals, right, and sort those out and paint a picture of what you're receiving, so that good people out there can understand, that's a different story, right? If somebody out there had the right, because people with the right mind, these guys, they have the right mind for this, right? They specialize. Their lives are specialized in these specific fields. So if they had the right data, they're not going to get the wrong picture, right? So a person like me who can see many things, why not get them the right data? And it's not easy. It's not straightforward. But ultimately it works.
And we need this. It's time. Let me ask you this question. As a pastor, is the urgency here, Mike, that this needs to be what we talk about in January?
Yes, I'll say it again, Pascal. Listen, some folks said they were, pulling the books on some things.
Okay.
What that means is
scrub the internet.
They're going to shut the data, the information, everything that is usable, because you don't do that unless something has happened, and you have to lock it down so nobody knows, right?
Right.
If you lock something down so nobody knows, that means the organization is in a critical phase of preparation. That happens before big wars, right? In small, tiny books. That happens before wars. That happens before
Wow.
global events. Never would anybody ever say, we're going to shut the books on all this stuff,
Yeah, from the
that's never
heavens.
happened. So when people get angry because they can't get usable information from the internet anymore. So this year coming up is going to be very critical. My personal opinion is going to be dangerous, very dangerous, be extremely dangerous, and very dark. I mean, dark, right?
Dark meaning because of the effects we're going to get from the heavens,
Well, from that,
or from
and
the
then you
internet,
have-
or the internet being scrubbed and disinformation by the powers that be.
well, that too, Pastor, but you have open ceremonies that will start taking place in 2024. For example, the Church of Satan is now in the White House,
Yeah.
right, doing stuff in the White House, right? They're having these demonic ceremonies. Here's the problem, though. That's why we're having more and more death in those areas. People are losing their minds, and it's not some psychological sickness. This is a real, whatever's happening is real. But I would, having said that, because I know people get frightened, all they have to do is read 1 John 5:18. Satan cannot touch anybody who is actually born again.
Right.
The wicked one cannot touch anybody born again. So,
No.
but it will get very dark. I mean, extremely dark. People have to be sober in this too, because you're looking at child death rising, going off the scales, right? Kind of like the
Yes.
old days when they would
Yes.
sacrifice children. You have certain ceremonies that require children, right? So when the death rate of children goes up, then you know what's happening. And it's not going to be some make-believe conspiracy theorist thing. It's going to be right in people's faces. Certain schools are now being sponsored by the Church of Satan. How did that happen?
Mike, I appreciate you coming on. I really do tonight. I really do. And we'll get together, Lord willing, next Thursday. What we're going to talk about? What's going to happen in the next 7 days?
Oh boy. Well, we have some of those poll states coming in.
Yep.
So that could be a potential issue, right?
Yeah. You gave
That
us
could
some
be a
dates on
potential
that.
issue. So we'll see. We'll
Okay.
see. I'll tell you what, if something does happen on or around those dates, that means the algorithms are getting closer and closer to accuracy. And so that's a good thing for forecasting.
That way
It's a very
you
good
can
thing
get a
for
better
forecasting.
hand on forecasting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. We'll keep an eye on it then.
Pascal, it's always an honor.
No, the honor's mine. Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much. I love you, brother.
All right, Pascal. God bless you, brother.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Mike from the world.